All right, let's get right into this explainer. We're looking at a fascinating final decision from the state of Michigan's Department of Insurance and Financial Services, or DIFS. We're digging into enforcement case number 25-1897, which exposes an absolutely wild six-figure fraud ring orchestrated by a formerly licensed insurance producer named Alicia Buford. Now, if you've ever taken a highly monitored, remote proctored exam, you know exactly how intense and stressful those security measures can be. Well, today, we're going to see exactly how those sophisticated digital gatekeepers were completely bypassed by an incredibly low-tech, almost shockingly simple operation.
So how did this all unravel? It started with a data discrepancy that you just can't ignore. The data forensics team at PSI Services, they're the folks who administer these professional exams, were reviewing test data from Michigan's life and health producer exams. Usually, your average test taker is sitting there sweating it out for over 86 minutes, right? And they've got less than a coin flip's chance of passing, hovering around a 43% pass rate. But then, investigators flagged this very specific group of remote test takers. This group was blazing through the exact same exam in just 8.5 minutes, and their pass rate? A staggering 99%. I mean, that is a literal statistical impossibility that practically screamed fraud.
Part 1. The investigation begins.
Now, statistical anomalies are one thing, but to actually prove fraud, you have to catch someone in the act. When investigators pulled the remote webcam footage for these miracle test takers, they noticed a really bizarre pattern. Dozens of these students were testing from the exact same weird environment. It was this small hallway, you could see a kitchen in the background, and there was always a door right to the test taker's left. The routine was identical every single time. The remote proctor asks the student to pan their webcam around for a full room scan, right? The room looks empty, it passes inspection, but then, literally seconds after the test begins, that door on the left silently opens. And from that moment on, the official test taker just turns into a statue. They sit perfectly still, hands entirely off the keyboard while the test rapidly completes itself on their screen. They knew someone else was in that room. So, investigators subpoenaed Comcast to track down exactly where this magic testing hallway was located, and they hit the jackpot. Between January and November of 2024, Comcast logs linked over 200 of these miraculous test scores to a single internet connection. Across 212 separate suspicious exams, the test takers were all using the exact same IP address, xxx.xxx.xxx.10. That address, along with an associated phone number, traced directly back to Alicia Buford's residence in Commerce Township, Michigan. Which brings us to part 2, the tutoring front and the money. A quick search of that phone number led investigators straight to a website called AB Tutoring Solutions, and this exposed the true industrial scale of what was happening here. Just look at this number, nearly $150,000. This is the exact amount Buford pulled in over just 11 months. By subpoenaing records from Square and Block Inc., investigators found she was taking payments through Cash App, Zelle, and Venmo. She was requiring a non-refundable deposit up front, and then clients paid the rest on exam day. This wasn't just helping out a few friends. This was a highly lucrative testing mill. When you actually break down the revenue, it gets pretty terrifying. We are talking about unqualified individuals paying hundreds of dollars to cheat their way into handling the public's life savings and mortgages. She was charging $500 a pop for mortgage tutoring and $250 for life, accident, and health. Between January and December 2024, she raked in over $45,000 from the mortgage industry alone. Life and health brought in over $41,000. These are exams designed to ensure baseline ethical and professional competency, and Buford was just selling passing grades to anyone with a smartphone and a Venmo account. Part 3. The undercover sting. To absolutely nail down how she was doing this, PSI Services launched an undercover sting. They sent an auditor to Commerce Township to buy one of these so-called tutoring sessions. On November 12th, the auditor shows up at Buford's house, pays the cash balance, and Buford walks him through the game plan. It was so simple. She had him complete the mandatory webcam check-in with the proctor, but because she deliberately positioned the desk right next to that side door, she knew exactly where the camera's blind spot was once it was set back down on the monitor. After the scan cleared, she'd slip through that door, sit in a spare chair just out of frame to his left, and physically reach over to use his keyboard and mouse. Her instructions to the undercover auditor were incredibly strict. She literally told him to keep his eyes forward at all times and his hands down on the desk. He was not to react to her walking into the room whatsoever. Basically, act like a mannequin, so the webcam wouldn't pick up any sudden, suspicious movements while she did all the heavy lifting. This perfectly matched all that bizarre, paralyzed behavior investigators saw on the video feeds.
And here is where it gets truly audacious. She wouldn't just speed through the exam, she actively manipulated the results. The auditor noted that while she was flying through the test, finishing the whole thing in under 20 minutes, she would occasionally go back and change a correct answer to a wrong one. She actually bragged to the auditor that this was a deliberate tactic. She was sabotaging her own perfect scores just to make the session look more realistic and avoid triggering the testing company's anti-cheat algorithms.
Part 4. The Interrogation.
So, armed with a sworn affidavit and a 95% certain photo ID match from their undercover operative, investigators casually reach out to Buford via email. They ask her point blank, "Are you present at the premises when the test taker is taking the exam?" And she replies with this deadpan, completely absurd excuse. She claims she was just hovering over them to, make sure they didn't break her laptop. She totally denied taking the tests, maintaining this illusion that she was just loaning out hardware and study materials. But of course, the state already had her dead to rights.
Part 5. The Final Sanctions.
Yeah, unsurprisingly, that laptop defense didn't fly. She ended up ignoring the formal administrative complaint, which led to a default judgment. Legally, that means all the state's allegations were accepted as true. The director of the Department of Insurance and Financial Services brought the hammer down fast. They ordered her to cease and desist immediately, slapped her with a maximum $50,000 civil fine, and permanently revoked her own insurance producer license. Just like that, the multi-industry testing mill was dismantled.
But as we wrap up this explainer, we are left with a pretty unsettling reality check. Alicia Buford got caught because of a statistical data review after the fact, not because the live remote proctoring system stopped her in real time. Over 200 people managed to bypass the digital gatekeepers just by exploiting a camera blind spot with a spare chair. It absolutely makes you wonder how many other tutoring solutions are operating under the radar right now, weaving unqualified people right into our sensitive financial and real estate markets. It's a fascinating and frankly concerning look at the limits of high-tech security when it goes up against a highly motivated analog workaround.